Hey friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and today I'm wearing my Matriarch of my Tribe t-shirt with purpose. I don't wear many t-shirts, but this is one I do wear, and I'm happy to wear it. And you know, when people see it and they go, well, what do you mean you're the matriarch of your tribe? You know, if the younger kids ask me, it's like, it means I'm the oldest woman standing in my family. And that means something to me. It really does. And this whole channel that I've created back in 2016 was a legacy, you know, to leave to my family, you know, my descendants, you know, after I'm gone, for them to be able to access, you know, if they're interested in tarot, if that kind of interest passed down, that they have a family ancestor who did it. And I had a family ancestor who did it, but there was nothing about her for me to follow. In fact, I didn't even know she read, you know, tarot cards until I had been reading myself about 20 or 25 years, and she was dead 50 or 30 or whatever. So I think it's very important. And the reason I'm mentioning all this is that one of my subscribers, Valentina DeLuca, had contacted me through email, which I encourage all of you to do if any of you have projects or anything, because you watch my channel, you support me, so I'm happy to support you. But she sent me an email. Apparently her messages or her, you know, comments that were down below were frequently getting deleted by YouTube, and I never saw any of them. But she has a Kickstarter. The deck that she's created, Tarot di Matronua. And as soon as I saw Matronua, I had a feeling, and I wanted to ask her to verify before I said anything stupid, if it had to do with matriarchy or you know, the mother, you know. And Valentina confirmed that it was, you know, maybe an old Italian word or a rare Italian word of saying that, you know, matriarch. Now, I'm probably not pronouncing it right because I'm American and I don't speak Italian, but I think it might be Matronua is the correct pronunciation. And her Kickstarter launches in 3 days, so there's not a lot of time. But she sent me the link, which I will provide down below. And I really would encourage you guys to take a look at it. She describes it as a Marseille-style tarot with Italian artistic flair. And it's gorgeous. It's another one that's blowing me out of the water. It's like so beautiful. And it's hand painted. Now, I had asked her before I started this video, but I didn't give her enough time to answer, if it was hand painted with, you know, paintbrush or, you know, pencils or something, or if it was done on a tablet, because not that it makes a difference, because beautiful art is done both ways. But from what I could see from the video, it kind of looked like it was not done on a computer screen or anything. It looked like it was being done on individual sheets of paper, which were then reproduced. So that's impressive. She is an art student graduate, so she's got some talent, obviously. And it's a gorgeous deck, and I just want to give her a shout out, and I will put the link, as I mentioned, to her Kickstarter down below. But you better, if you're interested in what you see, you need to act quickly, because her Kickstarter ends within 3 days. And the universe works in mysterious ways, and I'm convinced it does, because months ago I saw, you know, a comment, you know, a subscriber comment. Valentina comments quite often. And she's been with me since the beginning. She's been with me since the early days of my channel. And she mentioned, yeah, I saw her last name, DeLuca, and I commented publicly on the public, you know, comment section, that I had my favorite great aunt, who I was remiss in not mentioning her when I did a segment on my grandfather. She was my favorite. She really became the surrogate grandmother that I didn't have on the maternal side, because in those days we didn't know about Alzheimer's. We only knew about you know, dementia, right? And my maternal grandmother was absentee. She was present, she was alive, she was in the house, you know, but she had dementia, so she had checked out when I was very young, and I only have fleeting memories of her. And my aunt, her sister, lived in that house with my grandfather and she, and took care of her, helping my grandfather take care of her. They were tight, And her name was Millie. Now, I don't know what her real Italian name was. I forget. It was something else. But I'll have to look at a gravestone or something to find out what it was. But at any rate, getting back to DeLuca, Millie's last name was DeLuca. And the family story was that Millie, in her young days, I think she was born in Italy. She came over here with her family. My grandmother was born in this country. Now, I think Millie was like 10 years older than Elizabeth, and then my grandmother. And the parents died when Elizabeth was really small, so Millie sort of took on the role of raising Elizabeth until she was of age to be married, and she married my grandfather. And she came with the house. My grandfather moved into their house. And so Millie was the oldest who reared all her siblings. And then, it came down to Elizabeth being the last one in the house. So when he married my grandmother, he got the house, but he also got Millie, who came with the deal. At any rate, the story is that Millie had been married to a guy named DeLuca, and they decided that it wasn't working out. They decided for DeLuca to return to Italy, and while he was there, they agreed that it would be very convenient if they pretended that he passed away in Italy, so that they could each have their lives. Now, Millie never remarried, and that might just have been like family gossip. It may not have had any truth. I certainly didn't know about it until Millie was dead for a number of years, and I was like, Ma, you should have told me. I would have asked her, So who knows? But I have a feeling, whether or not it was a love match or maybe a match that they agreed to separate, the universe works in strange ways. So Valentina, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if somehow we're connected through the DeLuca family. That would be pretty cool. Anyway, changing the subject, I'm going to be doing a different read today. I mean, it's not a different read. I'll be using a deck that's quite different than the one I just described by Valentina. This one is one that you've seen me use regularly. And I did find a little white book for it, which I thought I didn't have, but it was in the silk scarf, The Tarot of the Witches by Fergus Hall. This copy that I have, now the booklet says 1973, but I think that might have been referencing the 007 James Bond deck with the same cards. So that's when the images were created. So this booklet came with this deck. Okay, yeah, and on the bottom. Okay, so it's based on the 73 deck, but the bottom date is later. It says 74. So this deck is from 1974. And it's the Fergus Hall Tarot of the Witches. So I thought I would just do one of my signature spreads. Let me go off camera, come up with a question to ask, and we'll get started. Okay, I've come up with a question. This Saturday in the United States is the No Kings March. It also, I think, was designated on that day to protest, whose fancy birthday party parade that he plans on running. Now, I had mentioned in another video, I think, that he invoked the martial law, but really it was the insurrectionist law that he invoked. But I think he did it. This is my opinion. Take it or leave it. But I think he incited violence. He created the situation in Los Angeles. That's a fact. Okay, he created a situation which, unfortunately, protesters took the bait. We can't take the bait, because that gives him permission now to unleash his evildoers to attack protests that happen. Right? Now he has permission. Now, in his mind, he feels he has permission. So with all the protests that will be going on this Saturday, June 14th, I'm very concerned because I'm afraid that especially in the bigger cities, that there will be a presence to do his bidding. And under all circumstances, anybody who participates must take precaution. Don't Don't wear t-shirts that people see you in all the time. Don't wear hats that everyone can recognize you in. Because you're not doing anything wrong. But when they peruse these videotapes or they peruse these things and they see somebody that they decide to seize upon, if there's anything telltale about you, they can knock on your door. I mean, I'm not saying that maybe I'm being paranoid. I could be. I hope I am. But it's kind of like the fear that's been instilled on us. And we can't be afraid. We have to be brave. But we also have to be smart. We have to protect ourselves. So bear that in mind. So, having said that, I want to do a reading. I'm going to do my signature spread because it will show multiple aspects of a question. And I want to ask about the nature of the day, keeping in mind the many protests going on throughout all 50 states, and also his frickin' parade. Now, the spread usually speaks on everything I need to know. The beauty of my signature spread is that there are no positional meanings. It's not like this position means that and this card in that position. I can read spreads like that, but I don't prefer to. I like my signature spread because it allows me to let the cards speak to me. And I know exactly what aspect of a problem they're talking about. So that's why I'm using it. So let me flip the camera and we'll get started. Alrighty, so I'll give one more shuffle. I've already been to my meditative place with the universe. I'll give one more riffle shuffle and a few more hand shuffles. Now, I'm a firm believer that a deck must be, generously shuffled to get a fresh start. Shuffling a deck 2 or 3 times isn't going to cut the mustard because you're going to keep the same cards in play. You're not getting a good shuffle, So that's why I'm maniacal with my shuffles, in case you were wondering why I shuffle so much. Okay, we start out with 5 swords. Now, the suit of swords being read in this deck suggests a lot of action, a lot of activity. We have 5 as an unstable number. So that could give us a sense that it might be a tense day. Followed by, 10 cups. That's interesting, which is fulfillment. It's not wish fulfillment like the 9 of cups might be, but it could be seen as oversaturation too. So now this isn't a baton. Now, if the next card is a baton, then I might see this cup between a sword and a baton as being an oversaturation of emotions, maybe not for the good. So let's see what the next card is or what the card below it will be. Okay, another card. Now it's a de-escalation of emotion. So that's good. That's good. We want passion, but we don't want violence. Okay, well, let me shut up. Okay, we have the Moon card. Underneath it, we have the Hanged Man. So underneath that card, we have that. So we have 2 Triumph cards in a row, in the center row. 3, the World. Wow. Wow, that's something. Okay, let's take a look. We have a lot of the Triumph cards ending this. Okay, we have a King of Swords. This deck is lovely because the suits have color, and, we're reminded of the suit of, and some people think that this is a hard deck to read, but I don't know. I think it's kind of an easy deck to read because it's color. Oh, Jesus. Wow. Okay. Okay. All right. So let me add up the quint cards for each row and then for the final spread collectively. For those of you who are new to my channel and you're not aware, I do have many videos where I show my signature spread, but I'll throw you the bone today. What I do is I add up the numbers of the numeric value cards, and if they exceed 22, I subtract 22 until I get a number from 1 to 21. And if I get either 0 or 22, that's simply the Fool card. Many times the quint cards are cards that are already at play on the table. And what I do in those cases is I just pick another deck, Sometimes I have a duplicate of a deck, I pull that. And sometimes I just pull whatever deck happens to be on my table and they don't match at all. Now, I'm very glad that I mentioned how sometimes cards can be in play on the table already, and so you have to pick a card from another deck. And I just happen to have the 007 deck that actually did come out in 1973 and accompanied the film. So I just used those cards as the extras. Just as an aside for any of you who are collectors or might be thinking of trying to find that deck, you'll notice, and it shows up more clearly in real life than it appears to on camera, that the color saturation is different. Now, this was the deck that came out in 74, so this came out 1 year after this one. I don't know what the copies look like today. Maybe they went back more to the original, or maybe they stuck with this color intensity. But you'll notice that many of the cards that are between the two decks are slightly different, right? The Devil card in particular, this is the 007 that came out with the film. Remember, if you want to collect the one that came out with the film, get the blue backs. The red backs are a commemorative deck that came out later. But you'll notice, the color changed in the background. So I just thought I'd mention those things. And the blue in the wings is different. Okay. Now, getting back to the read. Boy, oh boy. The fact that the quint card for the entire spread, for the entire reading, is the Justice card. And God bless Fergus Hall for making number 8 the Justice card. We see, the red of the swords, and she has a sword, but I'm definitely grateful to see Justice as a final outcome card. Now, if there were an overwhelming amount of swords and a lot of red in the spread, it would occur to me that the military would be unleashed and that there would be a lot of violence. And we should always be prepared for that moving forward. So that's not an aspect of this card that I'm willing to overlook. Okay, I'm not being naive. But there aren't an overwhelming a number of violent cards. We have a King of Swords, and next to the Devil, right? And then there's another Devil there in case we didn't get the message. And then we have a card of Recklessness. Let's go there right now. So I take it to mean that this is military sanctioned by you-know-who, or that this is just you-know-who behind it, obviously. So this could represent that he will recklessly unleash the military or his whatever group of merry men he seizes upon us. There could be some women. This could be representative of people in a parade, or not a parade, but I don't think we're fools. I really don't. I don't think he sees us as fools. He's looking at us, and maybe just like with the, attacking innocent people who are going to courthouses, or going to their jobs, he just sees that as their weakness and he pounces, which is what he's done. But of course, it's evil intent. It's evil intent. So, well, I guess I'm going to backtrack a little bit and suspect that there will be a military presence at this stage, because I think he deliberately did that in California to incite the country. And if we don't deliver peaceful protests, and if we see something brewing, move aside, get out of it. Don't be like taking pictures and do what you want, but be advised that I would think, if there was something brewing, to get out of that way, because you don't want to get involved in violence. You don't want to be a victim of violence. You don't want to be arrested. You don't want to be sent anywhere. You know what I'm saying? So please. I think this is a stern warning about how he sees us, those of us who will be participating in any protests. He's willing to unleash ugliness. He's willing to do it. And he's looking at people who he thinks are fools, But we're not. We're just being brave. Now, in the same row, where Justice is the quint card for the entire spread, and it is for the entire spread, but it does by design go on this row. And I really can appreciate that the Justice card falls in the line with the front and center of the core 9. Remember these cards here, the core 9. We have a card of punishment, right? And it falls above who we might think is him or his cronies representing him. And above it, we see an oversaturation of emotion. Now, it de-escalates, quite a bit up there. But this is a row of powerful heavy hitters. We have the card of the unknown, the moon, the card of the world is watching, right? We have the Chariot moving forward. It could be the parade, right? This is a military man in a parade, so this could be his parade. Now, this is maybe what he'll try to do to maybe some of the bigger cities. I can't imagine that this will be descended upon every protesting town. But I think it might be unleashed at some. This one maybe is in reference to his own parade, because we have the charioteer here, right? Wow, and it's the charioteer, the guy on the chariot is being celebrated for being a hero, and it falls right above the devil. It falls under the moon, which appears here also. So if it represents him, it could represent lunacy or mental instability, to some degree here. Now, I'm not seeing this as being oversaturation of mental instability, because it's not surrounded by batons. It is agitated, but it's not surrounded by it, and it does de-escalate. So, but I do see this as him in his parade. He's looking, I guess, he's looking this way, so it looks like he's looking to be a big shot in the world. To be seen as the world as a bad ASS. I don't like to curse. I do occasionally, however. But maybe he just wants to be seen by the world as that. Maybe he wants to be admired and loved, but at the same time feared. But we have this card of consequence, of punishment. Now, this guy's holding a book. What is in the book? There's a butterfly. Is that a butterfly? Yes, it is. I've had this deck for 50 years. I never noticed a butterfly. Wow. Son of a gun. Okay. So he's got his butterfly. Oh yeah, I guess I've noticed this one, this butterfly net, and over here, but he's reading a book about butterflies. Okay. So, wow, this is a good example of reading the deck. So we have somebody who's who's being punished, falling in line with justice, right? On a world stage. But it's like he hasn't got a grip. He hasn't got a grip on why he's being persecuted. I mean, the butterfly traditionally, the first time I believe a butterfly appeared in a tarot deck, it was I think it was in the Vernano, and it appeared with the Fool. This one doesn't have it. And I think it was the first time a butterfly ever appeared. So I wonder, I don't know, this might be a reach, but I wonder if Fergus Hall took the butterfly of the Fool and applied it here because this guy got hung because of his foolishness, chasing butterflies. I don't know. That's a stretch, but that's how the message is coming to me. So I'd love to believe that this is him ultimately paying the consequence for what he is unleashing. This card falls above him and below an oversaturation of emotion, which may have been agitated by what he's doing. Now, of course, the moon cards could on the surface definitely be expressing, mental illness, instability of the emotions. And we do have it on, 2 emotion cards. One's oversaturated, one's, at least it's an unstable number. So we do have that next to the moon card. So that could represent unstable emotions. And that could be all of us. We're all getting kind of tense. We're all getting kind of tense, right? And we can't fall into the trap. He wants us to become violent. That's the point of his insurrections. That's the whole point. He wants us to become violent because he wants to incite violence. That's his game, because then he feels he can justify whatever he unleashes, So there is a lack of mental acuity. We see it there too and under here. But there's also wickedness. So there's, don't forgive him his mental deficiencies because it's pure evil. So I wonder about this parade of his. He wants to be seen as the hero to the world. He wants to be seen as a bad, if anything happens to him, maybe he thinks something could. He wants to be seen as a martyr. Sometimes this card can represent a martyr, particularly to people who, read in the younger traditions, to be seen as a martyr. I think that's all possible, but I think, and this card could play a double edge. It could represent the military being unleashed, and it can also represent his undoing. Both things can be true at the same time. Oh, please, friends, be careful. We have to be brave, and I know we got to do what we got to do, but part of what we have to do is to be sensible, so that, if you have a ponytail, tuck it up under a hat. If you're inclined to wear a mask, go ahead. Wear your biggest sunglasses you got. That kind of thing. Oh, I should leave these cards out so I can take a picture to put it in my thumbnail. I have learned that my videos do better when I have a pretty picture rather than my ugly face. So let me leave these down and take a picture. Until next time, friends, peace. Stay well, be brave, and be very careful this weekend if you participate. Bye.